Day.
Air Force One with the president on board, landing right now at Joint Base Andrews, coming back from what has been a historic sit-down with one of the most feared leaders in the world.
What struck me the most is how much the president appreciated how devastating a war would be.
I think the media were all caught completely flat-footed with the success of this meeting.
Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein threatened to subpoena lawmakers over records in the Russia probe.
I'm here to tell you, we're fed up with it.
The DNC and some members of Congress are reportedly quietly consulting with actors to collaborate on messaging.
And the Democrats and these liberal elites they're just not connected. They're not connected to the American people.
Kid Rock hopes his endorsement can catapult this candidate to victory.
The next senator from the great state of Michigan, John James.
Well, after a long flight, you don't need a necktie. And we start with the Fox News alert. Moments ago, the president touched down at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland after that historic summit with North Korea's dictator Kim Jong-un. The president is back.
That's right. He just tweeted as he was landing. He said a long trip, but everybody can now feel much safer than the day I took office. There is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. Meeting with Kim Jong-un was an interesting and very positive experience. North Korea has great potential for the future, he says.
Grip Jenkins is live. He's going to recap all of it from Washington, D.C. Unless he refuses. Every once in a while, he'll just say no.
I will comply. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
You know, the president traveled 23 and a half hours with 2 layovers in Guam and Hawaii, landing, as you saw there, in Andrews about a half an hour ago. But he still found time also to tweet to the American people on the way home, saying the world has taken a big step back from potential nuclear catastrophe. No more rocket launches, no more nuclear testing or research. The hostages are back home with their families. Thank you to Chairman Kim. Our day together was historic. And this one addressing his naysayers, saying a year ago, the pundits and talking heads, people that couldn't do the job before, were begging for conciliation and peace. Please meet, don't go to war. Now that we meet and have a great relationship with Kim Jong-un, the same haters shout out, you shouldn't meet, don't meet. Now, the president also says he believes Chairman Kim is headed back to North Korea to start the denuclearization process virtually immediately. This as Secretary of State Pompeo has touched down in Seoul as we speak. He'll continue on to Beijing, working to facilitate the peace process. But gone are the days of politics ending at the water's edge, guys. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, arguably the most powerful Democrat in America, has already concluded the historic summit failed to produce anything.
President Trump seems to have given away 2 or 3 of the major things that Kim Jong-un wanted. A meeting, the flags next to each other, now no delay of exercises with South Korea without getting anything in return.
The motorcade is en route to the White House, expected to pull into the driveway any moment now. We will bring you those photos. We will find out whether the president's going to get some much-needed rest or whether he may take to Twitter again to address critics like Senator Schumer.
You should
You
say
know
that.
what? He went on Twitter 1 minute ago, Griff, while he's there in the Suburban. He says, before taking office, people were assuming that we were going to war with North Korea. President Obama said North Korea was our biggest and most dangerous problem. No longer. Sleep well tonight.
But for the most part, he thinks we're not going to know anything for about 6 months. How sincere they're going to go to the next step. How sincere they're going to be with them, Ambassador Bolton and Mike Pompeo, which they're going to meet as early as next week. Kim Jong-un came back. He said positive things about our president and said he got a lot of concessions. He got the meeting and he got the end of the military exercises. By the way, the reality of the military exercises, there's 2 a year. We did 1 already. The next one's coming in the fall. Should they start backing out of this, we ramp up. And the word from the Pentagon is we haven't stopped preparing. No one's even told us about this yet.
Well, media's having a heyday with it. But to your point, Brian, Lindsey Graham was on Fox and Friends. Fox and Friends was on The Story last night with Martha. And he talked about having a phone call with the president from Air Force One after that meeting right there with Kim Jong-un. And this is what he says.
I think it's a good first step. He felt good about it. He said he had a good meeting with Kim Jong-un. And what really struck me is that, listen, this has got to come to an end. We can't live with this kind of threat. He's got to give up his nuclear program. I want to make it a win-win. A war would be devastating. I don't want to go down that road. He felt pretty good about the initial meeting. We got a long way to go. But what struck me the most is how much the president appreciated how devastating a war would be, but it would be even more devastating to walk away from this nuclear threat. He's going to end it on his watch, is what he told me.
You know what? Lindsey Graham's exactly right. It's a good first step. And in fact, the president of the United States himself even said, look, you know, it was a good first meeting. I may stand before you in 6 months and say I was wrong. Nonetheless, it's a step in the right direction away from atomic war. And yet, mainstream media, a lot of people's hair's on fire. Watch.
After all the pomp and circumstance, what comes next? How does the U.S. hold North Korea to its commitment to denuclearize after its broken nuclear promises in the past?
How can the U.S. be sure? A key missing ingredient, no requirement that Kim Jong-un disclose how many weapons he has or where they are hidden.
To believe that Kim Jong-un is going to give away his nuclear arsenal, which really gives him the power, I think we went too far, and perhaps
nothing
giving
really
him
happened
validity.
Yet. Can we take Kim Jong-un at his word, and can we take the guy in the White House at his word?
Are we going ahead with just some hopeful, wishful thoughts? And I find that incredibly worrying, incredibly depressing.
You know, some of their points are valid as far as, can we trust this guy? We saw what he did to Otto Warmbier. We've seen what he's doing with his own people, his own family members, and starving so many people. So I do think some of the concerns are valid, but this is still a great first step.
So Victor Cha, who was going to be the ambassador to South Korea until his nomination got derailed, says, my sense is that we wanted was a lot more going into the meeting in terms of specifics, including a declaration of nuclear assets, some reference to a timeline. Right. So far, we haven't gotten those things yet, but that doesn't stop Marco Rubio from pointing out the hypocrisy in the media. He said the president's meeting with hashtag Kim Jong-un exposed incredible hypocrisy of many in the media. When Obama did these things, he was described as enlightened. When Trump does it, he's reckless and foolish. 1 year ago, they attacked Trump for leading U.S. towards war. Now they attack for being too quick for peace.
That's right. Look what Obama did in Cuba. Yep. And the media loved that.
They didn't even get a meeting. Ainsley, when he went to Cuba, no one even met him on the tarmac.
Well,
he was by himself.
A much different reception. And Rush Limbaugh, and there you see some of the images from back in 2016. Meanwhile, Rush Limbaugh says the left, the political left, mainstream media, caught off guard.
Expert after expert condemning it, ridiculing it. No chance, no way. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. We're on the verge of a potential disaster. I think they were totally caught off guard. What was really going on was they were hoping it was going to blow up. They wanted it to blow up. They wanted Kim Jong-un to humiliate and embarrass Trump. So when that didn't happen, I think that they were caught completely flat-footed with the success of this meeting, and especially the signing of the declaration which reiterated the Nork's pledge to get rid of nukes.
You know, it's kind of interesting, too. Among the people who were complimentary to the president, Bernie Sanders, he said this meeting is a positive step to de-escalating tensions and addressing the threat of North Korea's nuclear weapons. But it was brought out, too, to Ainsley's point earlier. President Obama came out and said to Kim Jong-un, if he was in power then, he praised the dictator as a very talented man, wants to do the right thing, very worthy, very smart negotiator. A lot of people would have been critical of him, but that did come out over the hour-plus press conference.
The bottom line is, though, if this happens, if he denukes North Korea, if he denukes that peninsula, it prevents a potential war down the road. So the media has to decide what they want their narrative to be. They can't say no war and then criticize him for getting rid of the nuclear weapons.
Look, 3 presidents could have done this, and 3 presidents didn't. Donald Trump has done it, and he's taken a step in the right direction, most people feel. Meanwhile, there's a problem at the Department of Justice. There's a showdown between Congress. They want some of the documents to figure out what is going on behind the scenes, and the Department of Justice simply will not reveal them. And in fact, there's a story out that apparently before the Inspector General's report, which is coming out tomorrow on Donald Trump's birthday, apparently the Deputy Attorney General was angry that the requests from Congress were that they respond in writing, because they didn't want it in writing, essentially, with the paper trail. So all of Congress's requests were on paper, and they didn't like that. And apparently there was a blow-up where, reportedly, Rod Rosenstein threatened to subpoena members of the Intel Committee to get their records, and they felt it was simply intimidation.
So the Deputy Attorney General was threatening the Intelligence Committee for investigating, just asking for paperwork. He said, "You keep asking for this in writing. I'm going to subpoena all your records and all your email." Oh, can you say they're not getting along? I think that's safe to assume. Plus, can we just mention this is the same party, a Republican-appointed deputy and a Republican-controlled House can't see eye to eye?
Well, the DOJ, they're denying this, and they haven't commented on it, so we'll have to see.
Right.
Now,
They say it didn't happen quite like that. You would think that as an attorney, you would want requests in paper. You know, you have a paper trail, but they don't like it. It's Washington. And so Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan, it sounds like as early as today, are going to file a resolution to compel him to turn over some of the documents. They were on last night with Laura. Look.
I'm here to tell you, we're fed up with it. We've been working on a resolution. It's all about compelling DOJ to turn over documents so that we can do proper oversight. You know, if they have nothing to hide, turn over the documents.
And the redaction, and also what really bothers me too is Senator Ron Johnson wrote. He goes, "I'm finding out that you're redacting things just for no reason or to make the story that we're trying to put together, the puzzle we're trying to reconfigure."
Intentionally pulling
impossible
things out.
about Peter Strzok and other people. So when they finally unredact it to a degree, they say, "What are you doing?"
They're taking out the embarrassing stuff from the Department of Justice. But we did hear from Catherine Herridge.
Yeah, she said from the DOJ that the Deputy Attorney General was making the point after being threatened with contempt that as an American citizen charged with the offense of contempt of Congress, he would have the right to defend himself, including requesting production of relevant emails and text messages and calling them as witnesses to demonstrate that their allegations are false.
One of the people had told Catherine in her report, having the nation's #2 law enforcement officer threaten to subpoena your calls and email was downright chilling.
Meanwhile, it's always great to see Jillian. Great job this morning as you handled the tarmac duty.
Thank you very much.
Air Force One landing.
Good morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's get you caught up. We have a Fox News alert. Some breaking news. Police now believe they have the person responsible for shooting an officer outside Pittsburgh. Another officer's head was grazed by a bullet. They're both expected to be okay. A suspect opening fire as police responded to a call, sparking a manhunt overnight. Now, we're also hearing the suspect may have taken hostages. No word yet on a motive. The results of crucial primary elections in 5 states will now shape the midterms. In South Carolina, Congressman and President Trump critic Mark Sanford losing his first race ever after President Trump endorsed his opponent. The commander-in-chief congratulating winner Katie Arrington moments ago, tweeting, quote, "My political representatives didn't want me to get involved in the Mark Sanford primary, thinking that Sanford would easily win. But with a few hours left, I felt that Katie was such a good candidate and Sanford was so bad, I had to give it a shot. Congrats to Katie Arrington." Let's look at your headlines. He has been busy tweeting up a storm since he got off.
When did he sleep?
And
I don't know.
We think that he's going to be hopping out of the motorcade here shortly on the south lawn of the White House. If he has anything to say, you'll see.
Well, he had a 20-plus hour flight, so hopefully he got some sleep.
Sure. Meanwhile, straight ahead, what are the next steps for diplomacy with North Korea after the president's big summit? Senator Cory Gardner here to discuss that. Coming up next.
Plus, Senator Claire McCaskill living it up on a private plane while on the campaign trail. The only problem, it was an RV tour.
Oops.
Nice.
Air Claire.
How sincere.
Fox and Friends is brought.
But what are the next steps in diplomacy, and are the critics right to sound off? Here to discuss, Senate Foreign Relations Committee member Senator Cory Gardner, Republican from Colorado. Senator, your thoughts on first blush, the key term, working toward, both sides, North Korea and the U.S., agree to work towards complete denuclearization. Is that enough for you?
Look, this denuclearization was the goal of this summit. Getting President Trump and Kim Jong-un to agree on denuclearization had to be the goal. This is the first time we've seen Kim tell a United States president in person that he supported denuclearization. We have a ways to go, but that's a historic achievement.
Some people are upset at some of the words the president used. He said, one point, honorable. They said he was smart. It was a great honor, a special bond, excellent relationship. Some are uncomfortable with that language. Are you?
Look, 2 years ago, people were complaining that the president's language was too harsh. Then it was too nice. Then it was too harsh. Now they're complaining about the outcomes or lookouts from the meetings. Here's what we know. At the end of the Obama administration, as a result of strategic patience, we were at the brink of war because North Korea had a fully developed program with dozens upon dozens of nuclear warheads at their disposal, with a ballistic missile capability that might reach the homeland of the United States. What we know now is we've backed away from that precipice of war. Now, we've got a ways to go, and we should remain cautious in terms of the ability of Kim to actually keep his word, because we know there's a family tradition of breaking their word. But this is a 34-year-old leader who's got 40 years to run. Does he really want to lead a hermit kingdom, or is he actually looking at something different? We will never know unless we pursue this path of diplomacy. There's no higher offering of diplomacy than the President of the United States, and that's exactly what we saw in Singapore.
Praise is coming from the Japanese leader and the South Korean leader, arguably the most effective. The next thing that's most controversial to some is the second military exercise of the year so far is on hold or out. Does that bother you? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, you know, I have actually been in South Korea in CP Tango, Command Post Tango, during Ulchi Freedom Guardian, one of the major exercises. Look, I think exercises are important. I'd like to see them continue, but perhaps the president believes this is a way he can move forward with President Kim. The bottom line is this: we will know that we have an agreement that is working with and toward denuclearization, and we're going to know that soon. We're going to have more follow-up meetings. This is going to be tested regularly. It should be tested. The resolve of Kim should be tested regularly on this, and the president made it clear that this will continue if there's not the progress made toward denuclearization that was promised. The Panmunjom Declaration, which was signed by the South Korean leader and North Korean leader this past April, was agreed to by reference in the Singapore summit. And so these are important steps that I think we've got to learn more about as we move toward denuclearization.
Senator, always great to see you, especially this early. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
And of course, we're gonna find out if those sanctions are going to be loosened. That would be key. The president does not want to do that. Meanwhile, straight again, support for the death penalty now on the rise, believe it or not. What's behind that spike, and what does it tell us about our country? We'll debate it next. Plus, remember when Facebook called Diamond and Silk dangerous? This morning, a big update from Mark Zuckerberg himself, probably without a jacket.
Oh, you brought Butch.
Yeah.
He's looking at me right now, isn't he?
Yep.
Butch is like an old soul that just hates my guts.
You can never have too many faithful companions. That's why I got a Subaru Crosstrek.
Love is out there. Find it in a Subaru Crosstrek.
If you've been turned down for a mortgage because of credit or tax return issues, Cash Call Mortgage now has credit and income-solving mortgages for people like you. Just call 855-890...
On this June the 13th, and here's some headlines for you. First up, the Department of Justice now weighing legal options after a federal judge has cleared the way for AT&T's $85 billion takeover of Time Warner. The court ruling by the judge yesterday against the government's argument that the merger could stifle competition, resulting in higher prices for people who use their products. And Mark Zuckerberg now admits Facebook messed up by calling social media stars Diamond and Silk dangerous. In a newly released response to a Senate committee, the CEO says, in part, quote, "We mishandled communication with Diamond and Silk for months. The message they received that characterized their page as dangerous was incorrect." The duo, which are avid Trump supporters, claim they were censored. All right, Ainsley?
Thank you so much, Steve. Well, support for the death penalty is rising among Americans. According to a new poll, 54% of adults in the United States this year are now in favor of the death penalty, while 39% opposed it in 2016. And 49% favored and 42% opposed. So why the spike and what does this tell you? Here to debate this is attorney Elliot Feelig, who served as a prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's Office of Homicides and Major Cases. And we have Keisha Hebben, who is a defense attorney and former prosecutor. Thanks, guys, for being with us.
Good morning.
Thank you. For or against and why?
For. I mean, for thousands of years and across multiple cultures, people have recognized that one of the reasons we have a criminal justice system is to incapacitate those who have demonstrated through their actions that they pose a danger to others. Well, look, there's no more definitive, there's no more effective, there's no more irrevocable way of incapacitating a dangerous individual than through imposition of the death penalty.
You know, becoming a parent changes how you feel about a lot of things because you think if this happened to my child.
Of course, such horrific crimes that we read about.
Keisha, for or against and why?
I'm against the death penalty, and I'm against it because number one, for spiritual reasons and for constitutional reasons, I don't feel that a human being has the right to take the life of another human being. You know, we have a lot of people who are against abortion, but for the death penalty, it's the same thing. You're taking a life. And I also find that it's being applied unfairly and unjustly amongst different races, different classes. Not everyone can afford a good attorney. And it also, from statistics that I've seen, it does not necessarily deter criminals from committing these heinous crimes.
Why do you think that the statistics have changed? Why do you think more Americans now are in support of this, Elliot?
Well, look, it tends to track with the crime rate. So violent crime rates and homicide rates have ticked up in recent years. But I also think when people read about like 10,000 MS-13 gang members and connected to MS-13 often connected
mutilating teenagers
to some pretty horrific crimes, and then there's a perception that law enforcement is holding back or that politicians are forcing law enforcement to hold back, that makes people rebel and want to see more aggressive action and what's perceived as more aggressive than the imposition of the death penalty.
Keisha, why do you think the numbers have gone up?
Well, I feel that our country has been so divided politically right now, and a lot of compassion has been absent, in my opinion. So I agree that a person who commits a crime, murders someone, rapes someone, should be punished. I think the death penalty is actually giving them a break. Like, they should suffer and sit in prison. So I think a lot of people are just going, you know, with hard on crime, you know, prosecute and kill them, instead of saying, you know what, let them suffer, let the victim see, or the victim's family members see them suffer in prison instead of just putting them to death and then that's it.
If people are put to death, Elliot, what does the standard need to be? I don't know if you're familiar with the Innocence Project, but people were killed. They were innocent of their crimes, and later science proved that.
Yep.
Do we need video footage? Do we need confessions? We need, you know, we just need hard, clear evidence to make sure these people really did the crime.
Sure, but a lot of those exonerations happen, you alluded to it, because of advanced technologies like DNA. That same technology can be used to make sure convictions going forward have more integrity, because we can use DNA to more definitively connect the guilty parties to the crimes themselves. So I think in the same way there are two sides to that coin. Sure, we have had high-profile exonerations because of DNA. We can also have more confidence because of DNA going forward that we're convicting the right people and imposing the death penalty on people who are truly guilty.
Okay. And it also goes to good legal representation. You know, someone who may not be able to afford a private attorney and has a public defender who's overworked, they may not push for, you know, well, we need more evidence. And, you know, a lot of times the demographics has a role in it as well. You know, some states are more conservative, they're more unlikely to prosecute certain individuals. So I think all that goes into whether the person's going to get the hardest or strongest defense as possible.
All right, Keisha, Elliot, thanks so much for being with us. Let us know what you think about this. It's a very fascinating, interesting topic. So send those emails in and we'll read them later in the show. All right, Democrats calling on Hollywood to help them win the midterms.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
I'm going to say one thing, Trump.
Well, does this prove that they are out of touch with real Americans? Plus, it was supposed to be an RV tour among the people in the Midwest. So why was Senator Claire McCaskill living it up on a private plane instead? We'll tell you about that story. But first, happy birthday to Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen. The famous twins are 32 years old today. We have watched them grow up.
You can go your own way. Go your own way.
I'm thinking.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
I'm going to say one thing, Trump. It's no longer down with Trump. It's Trump.
So you hear some of that brilliance among the famous people that you maybe go pay money to watch movies, and you say to yourself, why do they seem so angry, and what is the magic behind their message? So magical that the Democratic higher-ups think they want to tap into some of that promotion and marketing.
They do indeed. In fact, there's an item in Politico that talks about how the DNC has been meeting with various writers and actors and producers trying to get Hollywood to help them with messaging, not only for the midterms and the presidential, but also to turn out the vote. So they're trying to find some young actors and celebrities who will tape themselves going in to register to vote and things like that. But when you look at the messages, and that little montage summarized pretty effectively some of the crazy points of view that have been out there. Keep in mind, after Robert De Niro said that about the president at the Tonys a couple of nights ago, those people in attendance gave him a standing ovation for close to a minute.
It's just, talk about hypocrisy. What if conservatives did this? What if conservatives had said that about President Obama? It's just distasteful. It's angry. It's mean-spirited. You can disagree, but you don't have to say things like that. It's just too far.
So I was just thinking to myself, it's so good that the president was giving Robert De Niro the Eminem treatment of ignoring him. And then last night, these tweets came rolling in from Air Force One.
Good.
Robert De Niro, a very low IQ individual, has received too many shots to the head by real boxers in movies. I watched him last night, meaning at the Tonys, and truly believe he may be punch drunk. I guess he doesn't realize the economy is at the best it's ever been, employment at an all-time high. Many companies pouring back into our country. Wake up, Punchy! And that'll be what 45% of the country that supports President Trump will be calling Robert De Niro as he walks the streets of New York.
But if you have a message, don't you want your message heard? His message was bleeped, the entire thing.
That's a good point.
You didn't even know what the message was if you were watching.
But I'll give you something else. What is the wisdom of tapping into that? The one thing we've seen with Al Gore, the one thing we've seen with Hillary Clinton, is a ton of celebrities.
Sure.
They show up, the crowds come out, Jay-Z, Beyonce, they come out, but they doesn't convert to votes.
Well, you hear people in the middle of the country, they say, we don't care about these celebrities. They can't relate to us. Let them all come out, because then it backfires on them.
You know, if you're a Republican, I think you would say, yeah, Hollywood, keep it up, because clearly they have been so out of touch with mainstream media and mainstream America. Let us know, does Hollywood reflect your personal political point of view?
I think I know
and
the
do you
answer.
listen to them?
I think I know
Does
the
what
answer.
Robert De Niro really matter? I mean, Punchy. Does that really matter, what Punchy says?
If I'm a producer and I have a movie, I want Robert De Niro in because he's a great actor, but now I don't because he's 45% of the country is so enraged by the way he talked about
It's
the
a business
president.
But you're not losing sleep over it. I mean, does it really? I was watching the Tonys. I saw it.
But
I was like,
would you
okay.
pay for a movie to watch him? Let's say Raging Bull 2, Jake LaMotta lives.
I don't like those kind of movies. I want like Amy Adams and like Reese
Rom-com.
Witherspoon.
How about Meet the Parents 9? Would you go to that with Robert De Niro?
Don't put me on the spot.
Well, you wouldn't. Then it becomes a question. You know,
I haven't seen a movie since before I became a mom.
I'd like to go see Ben Stiller, but that guy, that Robert De Niro, is in there. You're saying people would say,
Why take the risk?
I'm going to save my $20.
Yeah, De Niro
Let
might
us
not need
know.
the money.
Let us know.
But the producer does. The financiers do.
All right. Meanwhile, Jillian joins us with some headlines. And
What would you find? Wait a minute. If Rocky Balboa did this,
Is
would you
Sylvester
change
Stallone?
the name of your dogs?
No, you mean Rocky Balboa, the fictional character?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's Sylvester Stallone.
Right.
Would you change the name of his dogs?
If he became super
Rocky
political,
Rocky and Apollo.
Rocky and Apollo. I would really have to consider it, and I have to consult a dog lawyer. I have to see if I can do it at this point.
Do you
because
know
he's
a
two.
dog lawyer?
But the good thing is about my other dog, Apollo, he's deaf, so I could change his name every day. He wouldn't know.
Sorry.
Okay.
He have no idea.
Or Apollo.
He's a hand signal guy.
Right, so Jillian, Brian has no more money. He can't send his kids to college because they've had 5 trillion operations.
Poor Apollo.
$6,000 an operation.
You're going to meet him on Take Your Dog to Work Day coming up soon.
All right.
Great.
Okay, I can't wait. Let's talk about the news while you guys, talk about Apollo. A search for suspects intensifying after a border agent is shot in southern Arizona. The agent shot several times in an area known for drug smugglers near the Mexico border. It's part of an alarming trend. The agency reporting 847 assaults on officers last year alone. This particular agent is expected to survive thanks to his protective vest. Multiple people have been questioned. An Illinois judge blocks a ban on assault weapons just hours before it was set to go into effect.
the mayor of Deerfield, a suburb outside Chicago, initially proposing the measure in the wake of the school shooting in Parkland, Florida. Violators would face possible confiscation and daily fines up to $1,000. Supporters of the ban say they will appeal the ruling. Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill confesses to misleading voters. The Missouri representative now admits that she used a private plane to travel between stops on what was billed as an RV tour of her state last month. McCaskill coming clean after a report in the Washington Free Beacon that questioned the movement of her private jet. She claims that it was only used to make additional stops and that it was never kept a secret. It was the biggest story on Twitter yesterday. And it's not over yet. People across the country watching this raccoon climb up a 23-story building in Minnesota. Jamie tweeting, quote, "I never thought the fate of a raccoon would keep me from sleeping, but it did. Congratulations, very happy you made it." Debbie writing, quote, "If a raccoon can climb the side of a 24-story building, I can probably get the pile of laundry washed today." I feel you. I got a pile on my floor right now. Firefighters now trying to catch him on the roof.
Dan, Jillian, if you can climb up, why can't you climb down?
Maybe he's afraid.
It's just a little more complicated going nose down.
So the
because your
firefighters
claws
had to
are
come
the
in,
other
though.
way.
Firefighters got him, right?
They're trying.
They're trying to. He's up on the roof. He kept climbing up. He's on the top of the roof.
And the good news is we're almost out of raccoons. So if that one had not survived, we'd be in a lot of trouble.
No, there are plenty around.
We
Yeah,
do?
check your trash cans outside.
All right. Meanwhile, it is exactly 20 minutes before the top of the hour. And you know what? The temperatures are nice out there right
I
now.
don't believe that raccoon actually went up the building.
I didn't know
That was
they
a
could
really
climb up-
blurry photo.
So you don't believe anything?
So you're saying we made that news up?
No, I just want to see more proof of the raccoon actually scaling the building.
Because it's
That's
not
all.
a fit raccoon. He's got a gut.
I
You
mean,
would think a raccoon would be ripped.
We have seen him resting, but I mean, that's blurry. Let's see if we can get onto that. All right, here we go. Current temperature 66 here in New York, 70 in Chicago, 74 in Memphis. Here's the past 24 hours. So we do have some showers and thunderstorms in the forecast across portions of the central U.S. and the interior Northeast. We've got a big U.S. Open happening this weekend in the Hamptons. So here's your severe threat through tonight. Mostly the interior Northeast, but some of the coastal areas could get some scattered thunderstorms today. We're also watching Hurricane Bud moving up towards Cabo San Lucas. It is weakening. The good news with this is not only is it weakening, but it could bring some much needed relief to the southwest, which is burning. It's on fire here. Heat advisories well over 100 degrees. So we have extreme heat warnings in effect for all of these areas. And if I could, we're watching one area of concern in the Gulf of Mexico over the next couple of days. It is hurricane season, so we will keep you up to date, and we'll keep you up to date on the raccoon, whether or not it actually scaled the building.
We believe it did. We just don't know what it's doing right now.
All right, I want to see it.
All right, JD, thank you. Meanwhile, critics predicted the economy would collapse when Trump became president, but the American people are more confident than ever. Will the left finally admit putting America first has made us first?
Plus, a video, pretty astounding. A police sergeant runs into the road to save a wandering toddler from oncoming traffic.
Wow.
That hero and that story. And that hero join us live.
For adults with advanced non-small cell lung cancer.
Good morning to you and welcome back. Here are some quick headlines. New federal safety standards for baby high chairs just announced. It comes after reports of more than 18,000 high chair related injuries since 2012. The chairs will soon be required to include a 3-point restraint system and more stability. The changes take effect next year. And from pizza to pavement, Domino's is now stepping in to help repair our nation's infrastructure. Their Paving for Pizza campaign is filling potholes around the country, making sure your pies make it home in one piece. The company is asking people to nominate their towns to have their potholes filled. And if they would like to bring the truck by 6th Avenue, I'd be glad to go out and check it out. Steve.
All right, thanks, Jillian. Meanwhile, some critics on the political left are running out of excuses for why President Trump's America First economic policies have caused a boom rather than the bust that they predicted. Turned out, the American people are feeling confident about the economy under President Trump, with 59% saying they're optimistic. Here to discuss, former chief economist for the U.S. International Trade Commission and international business professor at the University of Maryland in College Park, Maryland, Peter Morici. Peter, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You know, when you look at Japan, Japan's growth right now is at a negative rate. The EU is flat, and economists now are calling for a rate of growth in the United States 4% for the second quarter of 2018. For those on the political left who said it would be a big mistake to elect President Trump, they don't have a little egg on their face. They got a whole omelet.
Absolutely. You know, it's really not putting America first. It's putting Americans first. Getting the government out of the way so we can solve our own problems. You know, people focus a lot about the things we need to fix at home. And Lord knows we got to fix a lot of things. But do you realize that in the rankings of global competitiveness, the United States comes out now with Donald Trump in office first among all the industrialized countries and well ahead of China. The World Economic Forum, look at their rankings. Simply getting the government out of the way instead of running a French state, as Barack Obama did, is the key to success.
So, Peter, what's going on? You know, a lot of people have credited, a lot of Republicans have credited the tax cuts to help people feel like they got more money in their pocket. But then President Trump has made it very clear for every new law passed, we're going to cut 2 of our regulations, that is. But I think rather than for every regulation passed, they're going to cut 2, I think he's cutting something like 28 or 29.
Well, the deregulatory boom has been really very helpful, especially, for example, in the oil patch. But also, have you noticed the very steady growth in manufacturing jobs?
Right.
It was really hard for folks to focus on it because it's kind of under the radar. But each of these new factories and the expansion of factories was heavily regulated by the Obama administration. You know, it was hard to move a machine from one side of the shop to the other without either negotiating with a union or negotiating with Barack Obama, or Barack Obama calling up the union and telling them to go in there and negotiate.
Right.
Now you can get stuff done reasonably. Not recklessly, but reasonably. Everybody wants a safe workplace, but the safest workplace in Barack Obama's world was no workplace. We've opened up the factories again. Isn't that great news?
It is, especially for the Americans who need jobs. And right now we've got more job openings than Americans who are looking for work. But, Peter, you mentioned the word reckless a moment ago. I was watching TV earlier in the week. A lot of commentators were saying that the president was reckless in leaving the G7 summit up in Quebec with not signing on to their communique. But you say the president was right to walk away.
My feeling is the communique simply ran counter to what our fundamental objectives are, and that is to reform the global trading system so the American worker gets a fair deal. The Europeans would like to bog us down in negotiations about how to reform the system. What I want is the Europeans to reform. They're blocking our exports. They put on higher tariffs. It's high time the Germans were called to account for running big trade surpluses that victimize American workers and, frankly, victimize workers in places like Italy, Greece, Spain, Portugal, rural France, and so forth.
Right, and it shouldn't surprise anybody what Donald Trump did when he was running for president. He said, when I'm in the room with those people, I'm going to make it clear, America first. And he did, and here we are. All right, Peter, thank you very much for joining us live.
Take care.
All right, what do you think? Meanwhile, Seattle first thought it was a great idea to tax companies like Amazon to help the homeless until the backlash came. We're going to break down the big shift in politics out west. Plus, the video is incredible. Look at this. A police sergeant will run into the road to save a wandering toddler. That's a kid right there alongside the road. That hero cop. Live with us, coming up next.
You're okay. You're okay.
Oh, an incredible moment, as you can see, caught on camera. That hero cop saves a toddler's life as he's wandering into oncoming traffic.
All right, this Illinois officer is a hometown hero, no doubt. Naperville Police Sergeant Anthony Menino has been on the job 25 years, been on patrol for 12. And congratulations, officer. I cannot imagine what was going through your mind as you saw this unfold. Can you bring us back to that day as you're driving on that road and see that child?
Sure. It's the middle of the day on Route 59, which is a heavily trafficked area in our town. It's a main thoroughfare. And I was just conducting normal traffic enforcement, looking for distracted drivers, etc. And something caught my attention out of the corner of my eye off to the right. Initially, I thought it was an animal, possibly a small dog about to run into traffic. And as I got a little bit closer, I noticed there was a young toddler, maybe 1 to 2 years of age.
My word. How did the toddler get away from, he was with his mom, I understand, and slip left out, and she felt horrible about it. Tell us that story. How did he get out?
Apparently she was watching a child, and she was in the home with the child, and in a fleeting moment the child just ran out of the house. They lived within a couple blocks of where we ultimately came to a stop with that child, and she ran to the scene. She ran outside the house looking for her child. She saw the police lights on and figured it must be related to her child, and she was just running towards us and overwhelmed with emotion.
Sergeant, it's got to, when we look at the video, it gives you goosebumps because that kid was so close to getting run over by all that traffic.
Yes.
How do you, as an officer, what is the procedure? I understood that you got as close as you could, you stopped the car, and then you blocked that lane and then got physically out of the car. Because I know if you're about to go into a crime, you know, you have a certain type of adrenaline. Is it a different type of adrenaline when you're going to save somebody?
Yeah, in this situation, it was very fluid. There were obviously a lot of concerns that we had. My goal initially was blocking that lane of traffic, activating my emergency lights, getting out of the squad car and trying to corral that kid. If you look at the video, at one moment, he looks like he's about to make a left where all that traffic is going.
Yeah.
And once I saw that, that obviously raised that sense of urgency even more. And when I'm
Could have been. And the mother, I'm sure she was panicked when she saw the blue lights, and then she rushes toward the scene. And probably so relieved when she sees her child alive and in your arms. So thank you for what you do. You're a hero.
And not only do we salute you, but we know your town gave you a certificate of recognition as well. Sergeant, thank you.
Alfa Romeo could create.
It's a brand given life by craftsmen.